Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Oklou, Choke Enough. So I remember some buzz around Oklou going back to 2020's mixtape Galore, more underground, adjacent to the husky metallic edges of hyperpop and the prettier synth edges and bassy percussion, but sticking more in tasteful and minimalist art pop and R&B in both the writing and the vocals. How very French of her. Now, jokes aside, Galore is pretty decent, occasionally feeling like the skeleton of more compelling ideas in pop, but she has a pretty good ear for melody, so I wasn't that surprised when the critical acclaim started pouring in for this proper debut album, well, really outside some early soundtrack work. I'm also not that surprised that with a lot of listens, Choke Enough is, ironically, not gripping me as tightly as I hoped, where more of the R&B textures have been replaced with more 2000s pop and dance nostalgia, courtesy of A.G. Cook and Danielle Harl showing up as co-producers. And at least for me, that's starting to enter the uncanny valley as someone who vividly remembers that music and scene 20 years ago. And part of this comes from a very sharp juxtaposition between the theme and the execution. Oklou has described this album as searching for the moments where emotions are heightened. You step out near the brink, the flashes where you choke up, but you feel all the more alive for it. And that's a pretty damn good theme for an adventurous pop album. But where 12 years ago we got I Love It by Icona Pop and Charlie XCX, very much a strong parallel to the title track on this album, Oklou's project and approach feels very muted and restrained, more about the chase than actually finding that release, where you can tell much of the cryptic lyrics focus on imagining moments or choices that will go further, where the potential is what holds that tension and imagination. And you know what, maybe that's the point, where you have ICT as an abbreviation for ice cream truck, and you gotta wonder if Oklou would even know what to do with it if she caught it. And I do appreciate Bladee as a closer because it acknowledges this sort of self-obsession can kind of hurt people around you, and if you only care for them when they enable your freewheeling search or you're enabled of their capacity for that search, you'll wind up losing someone, and you're gonna regret it. The echo of a partner interrogating that reflexive running away on family and friends. But I'll be blunt, even if there are some very faint gestures at neo-pagan ritual beyond what we can easily understand, all that possibility, and you can tell she wants to avoid feeling trapped at all costs, which is tougher as you get older, the writing feels intentionally thin, rather abstracted, very rarely building to a strong turn of phrase in the poetry, and you start wondering whether all of this is just an excuse to avoid any sort of climax. Hell, Obvious tries to make ironic commentary on those who talk past her in a 2000s affectation, but misses the lesson from that era that ironic deflection doesn't actually change things or move the needle. And that takes us to production and instrumentation, where, again, to be fair, Oklou has a way around some of these very spare melodies, which I would find a lot more compelling and eclectic if they didn't wind up feeling like the cooler version of sounds Patricia Taxon spent the late 2010s doing better with a lot more to actually say, especially in the synth horns and the flutes. Now, the budget certainly here with the glossy mastering, the bassy simmer, and there are some neat tones. The twee whispers and longing for danger on Thank You for Recording. ICT rides that bouncy synth horn and shuffling patter into one of the best hooks. The album actually ends with some lightweight acoustic 2000s blends, Wanna Come Back and Bladebird, alongside Underscores as a guest star stepping up for the closest thing this album has to a banger on Harvest Sky. At least Underscores sounds like she cares here. But there are just as many tones that sound kind of awkward and feel all the more out of place when this is trying to sound so pretty and neatly packaged. Like how loose but oddly wonky Family and Friends feels, especially around the glassy hook, or how creaky and strained the title track sounds, or how Plague Dog sounds like a glassy fragment. Well, this album's all in general pretty fragmented. Or how Blade basically sleepwalks through his verses against the painfully thin percussion on Take Me to the Road. The project's opting for these homespun wispy vibes amidst a cushion of auto-tune and muted vocals, more implication and potential than resolution, and where that lack of payoff eventually leaves the few great hooks feeling kind of unsupported. And what's really frustrating is that I get why this might work for the fans. The melodies are there, there's a compelling thematic arc, and while I don't find Oklou to be that striking of a singer, I get the very composed, very subtle appeal. But for a project all about searching for moments that'll make you choke up with all that feeling, all that emotion, not only do I not hear any of that, even if the fruitless search might beat the point, it becomes all the more insubstantial tone poem that would rather look cool and disaffected than strike that deeper emotional chord, with the more emotive moments feeling chronically underpowered and unsupported. And while I could highlight that I've always had some distance from hyperpop, or that Oklou being in her 30s, it's a bit of a challenge to the whole "it's for Gen Z, you don't get it." I think at the end of the day, it is decent, but I wanted to like it a lot more. Y'all choke on that. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. I get the feeling the comment section for this particular review is going to be a bit of a mess. Look, I wanted to like this album. I really tried with it, and I think there are great moments, but again, it feels like a lot of planting but very little payoff, and there's only so long you can really tolerate that without the feeling that there should be more to be said. And again, I don't feel the sounds are all that innovative anyway, especially when I've been listening to Patricia Taxon going back to like 2017, 2018. But okay, beyond that, if anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in helping support the channel, get albums on my schedule, yell at me on my Discord, YouTube memberships, and Patreon, those options are available. Once again, don't feel obligated. Tough times, I understand, but hey, I wouldn't be against it. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.